So since this whole thing with Russia and Ukraine started, commodities have been soaring, going up, going down, going up again. And one of these commodities, the nickel, for example, was the experience or the witness of a major short squeeze. So much that the London Metal Exchange, which is actually kind of the stock exchange for commodities over in London, which is similar to what we have here in the US with the Chicago, the CME, the Mercantile Exchange. Now, what is interesting is when you actually pay a close look to what they said around what caused the short squeeze and the prices of nickel to go over 100,000 a ton, which literally was just trading at 25,000 a ton couple of days before this whole short squeeze, you cannot help but have a short and quick, straightforward correlation with what will happen here. And that's why I'm saying AMC should explode, all right? Because this is the exact same situation, the exact same setup that we do have here. Bottom line is, there are shorts in AMC as there were shorts in nickel. But before getting to some much more details, let me share with you exactly what the LME said. Banks are partly to blame for the nickel short squeeze, Metal Exchange boss says. The LME CEO Matthew Chamberlain said banks lobbied last year against efforts to increase transparency in the metals market. Chamberlain has faced criticism since LME allowed nickel prices to skyrocket more than $1,000 a ton and retroactively canceled $3.9 billion of trades. Let me pause here for a second. They canceled trades worth $4 billion US. Why? Because people couldn't sustain that anymore, because the price of the commodity, the nickel, went to $100,000 a ton. You were paying $25,000 even if you are a business. This is 250% more in just a matter of days. But guess what? This was because of the lack of transparency being increased in metals market. Now, if you don't see where I'm going with this, please stick with me just 2 more minutes, maybe 1 more minute. Bank last year lobbied against efforts to increase transparency in metal markets. The proposed changes will have allowed the LME to crack down on the large short position held by Tsingshan, for example, Holding Group, before it caused an unprecedented 250% price spike last week. Remember, there was a big giant company who used to trade, and because he's a tycoon, he's kind of the top company in that industry. But they were shorting over 150,000 tons of nickel. But only 30,000 tons of this position has been held directly on the exchange. The other remaining, I guess, was just a matter of OTC deals. OTC, over the counter, which is ultimately leading to what? The dark pools, where these big boys with the big pockets are doing business underneath the table, all right? Remember, this is a market where we don't have much transparency. The remainder is held via bilateral over-the-counter deals with big banks such as JP Morgan Chase, including BNP Paribas, Standard Chartered Bank, and United Overseas Bank. The OTC position has caused significant problems for the exchange. After the LME made a proposal last year to allow the exchange greater visibility of positions held over the OTC, it was rebuffed by a number of banks. I don't think we will allow it to be rebuffed again. This is the critical part, folks. He doesn't want to be put in that same position again, because the result was we had to cancel retroactively $4 billion worth of trades. Can you imagine putting an order to buy some AMC stock or to sell your AMC stock in the midst of the squeeze? And then for some reason, because it's too high, your brokerage firm says, you know what? Your trade is canceled. We are not going to give you the money for what you sold your position for. But it's too late, because the price is not trading at that price anymore. The stock is not trading at that price anymore. It is crazy. But the cause of this was what? Transparency. And that is why, again, I strongly believe AMC should explode, because we have the exact same pattern. But we do have something better here. They have shorted this stock to oblivion. maybe billions of shares. Nobody knows exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about billions of shares. Now, the thing is, we used to have lack of transparency, but the SEC and DOJ and all of these federal agencies going all the way up to the White House are now saying it's too much. All right, we don't want this to be a risk. And the risk will definitely look like as what we are seeing or experience in the nickel market. So we need to put in place some guidelines, We need to make sure we have some regulations in place in order to bring transparency up to light. Because the more transparency we have, the better it is to have such situations. But it's too late for them, and by them I mean the short sellers, because at some point they will have to what? To abide by these transparencies. Now, before we move forward, please remember that this video is being sponsored by me. There is a course that I put out there. You get the link in the description below, and it's under my course, and it's a course about how to make sure you get as much money saved as possible when you file your taxes. It may not be too late, even though we're already going into the end of March, but it will give you details around how are the benefits, how are all the advantages that you can you can actually leverage, not only to pay less taxes, but also to make a ton of money getting back from the IRS. Now, moving on. The bottom line is, with AMC stock, now that we have this bunch of short sellers that have used debt in order to fake shares, to fabricate shares that are not existing, that are not real, even though they still are kicking the can down the road not to abide by the regulations, at some point, there's going to be something. Like there was something coming here for the Nikkei market. They've been doing the exact same thing here. They were not willing to have transparency. But at some point, something came up in the market, what we call a black swan event, something that nobody even thought was possible. And then boom, all of a sudden they were caught off guard, and it causes all of these issues. So it's just a matter of time, folks. Just a matter of time.